Story time on why I decided to drop my signing to play soccer in college. You guys know my high school season has come to an end, and a lot of you guys still think I'm planning on playing soccer in college. But a lot has recently changed. I started playing soccer and basketball when I was around 4. Both of those sports were my everything. I played for multiple different clubs growing up. Soccer was where I always found the most success, but basketball was actually always my number one sport growing up. I wanted to play basketball in college so bad. Soccer was never my main sport until around sophomore year of high school. Why I gave up basketball is a whole different story time, but going into my sophomore year, I literally thought of quitting club soccer. But then that was the year my club team won the state championship. My club team started from literally the lowest Premier League possible, and we worked our way up to the National League. It was a long journey, but since I never really looked at playing soccer in college before then, because basketball was always my main sport, I guess I never thought I was good enough to play anywhere good for soccer. I don't know why I thought that. I have been starting on varsity since a freshman, and obviously you have to be good to play on a national team playing ECNL teams. If I wasn't playing at such a high level, I don't even know if college soccer would have crossed my mind, but it's almost like the pressure of that environment kind of forces you to look at colleges. After half of my club team graduated, me and like 3 other girls got pulled to a higher level club team, and I can tell you almost every single girl there was going D1, and if you weren't, you just kind of fell out of place. I never wanted to play D1. Division 2 felt like a good fit for me because I want to go into law. School has always been my main priority, so going Division 1, playing sports is your job. You're not there for school, you're there for sports. So I always wanted to play in the GLIAC, which is the Division 2 pool in the Midwest that I live in. I always wanted to go far away from home, but I didn't like the heat, so I ended up signing at Northern Michigan. When I first visited, I fell in love with the campus, I fell in love with the coach, I fell in love with the players, literally everything about it. I wanted to be there so bad. They had so much success in years prior. I committed the end of my sophomore year and signed in the middle of my junior year, but my sophomore year was also when COVID was hitting. So my college recruitment process was very different compared to most people's. Oops. My junior year is also when I started social media, and I also started to rethink being so far away from home. I kept my signing because obviously I was still playing club and I was having pretty much all my school paid for. I never really thought there was another option besides playing a sport in college. Because my entire life growing up, I was just an athlete. Literally, that was my identity. Then I started doing social media, and I told myself I was not going to make it about sports. This was going to be my girly side where I do the things that I actually like and people get to know me for me. And it has taken off in a way that I never would have expected, and really I have just found that there's way more to life than sports. When I transferred club teams going into my senior year, I felt like it was kind of a toxic environment. It wasn't necessarily one thing, it just felt everybody knew what they were doing next and no one really wanted to be there. It wasn't anything like my old team, and I guess you could say that's where I kind of to check out of soccer. So after club ended, I ended up visiting my dream school, which was Butler. I've always wanted to live in a big city, and where I was signed to play definitely was not that, and I also realized that I really wanted to go into law, and the school that I was signed at didn't have really the academic support that I would have needed to go in the direction that I wanted. It was also really far away from home, and my sister, who's 10 years older than me and has a kid and has another one on the way, my nephews all live in Indiana. So I visited Butler and I just fell in love with everything, and I visited Northern one last time and I really fell out of place there all of a sudden. I genuinely love the campus and the education, especially the coach. He didn't win Coach of the Year for no reason. Ended up calling him and talking to him and telling him kind of what's been on my mind and my plans for the future without soccer, and he was so kind about it. We released my signing and got everything out of the way. He completely understood. So besides quitting basketball, that was probably the second hardest thing I had ever had to do, walking away from sports. Luckily, I had a lot of support. All my coaches supported me. My last high school season went fantastic. We won districts against the #1 team. And I will try out for club sports and stuff at Butler. I'm thinking that will be really fun for me to do. It sucks because it's been my everything for so long, but you know, people's lives change. In the last year, my life has changed so much, and just because everyone else around you is doing something, going somewhere, doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. I already know when I go off to college, the hardest thing for me will be to see everyone else that I played with going off and playing soccer at their Division 1, Division 2 schools, having the time of their life, and I'm not doing that anymore. But everything happens for a reason, and once I get settled in, I know I will absolutely love the choice that I made. So yeah, that was kind of my little story time on why I decided to drop my signing, and kind of my next plans, and a little bit of my background, a little bit of everything. down. So hopefully this helps someone if you don't know what to do in the future as far as college sports go, if you're doubting it, if you ever doubt the sport that you're going to play in college, do not go to play it. You have to love it because you're going to hate it when you play in college, and you have to pick a school that you're going to love because you're going to hate the sport that you play when you go to play it in college. And that's just how it works. And unfortunately, where I signed at, I don't think I would have enjoyed myself there as much as I would at a campus that I absolutely love. You have to pick the right college, and I kind of wish COVID wasn't a thing for me because I might still be playing in college, I might not, I don't really know. But my education is what's important to me, and I wanted to be closer to family, and I just don't think I need the stress of sports anymore. I've been playing my whole entire life at such high levels, and it's a lot. If you're confused, know that you are more than just your sport. I have found so many things outside of my sport that I finally can enjoy, so I'm gonna enjoy them.
We have a serious case to talk about today. This happened in the UK. It was in the 80s, but it was not solved until 2020. So for over 30 years, 3 decades, this monster went undetected. This is the most foul case I think we may have ever spoken about. I don't even know the correct warnings to give for this one. There's a ton of talk about abuse. There is violence, gruesome, disgusting, disturbing details. So if you don't like listening to things that are extremely disturbing, please scroll. Like I said, this is in 1980s in a town called Tunbridge Wells in Kent, England. Wendy Nell, a 25-year-old girl, was moving on fresh from a breakup. She had just moved into an apartment by herself. She was the manager of a film store and she worked closing shifts a lot. June 22nd, she was working a closing shift. The guy that she was seeing walked her home from work. She went to bed, but the next morning she did not show up for work and nobody could get a hold of her. The guy she's seeing starts getting concerned. He walks over to her apartment to see what's going on. He doesn't see any signs of anything bad yet, but the door is locked. So he walks around and sees that a window is open. He essentially just climbs into her apartment through that window and finds the most horrific scene. Wendy was laying in bed, but you could tell she was no longer alive. Her face had been so badly beaten, it was assumed that there was a blunt weapon involved. She had bruises and blood all over her face as well as hand marks around her neck, so she was strangled. The police show up and start investigating, but there's no signs of anything pretty much. There's no signs of someone trying to break in besides the open window, no signs of a struggle. It just seemed like someone walked in through a window, committed murder, walked out and left. The only things they were able to find was one whole fingerprint and a partial shoe print. The autopsy later revealed that there was male DNA inside of her, so she had been used, and they were able to tell that that had happened after she was already deceased. Unfortunately, because it was the 80s, they didn't have the means to test the DNA yet, so eventually the case just went cold. 5 months after Wendy's death, the same thing happens in the same small town. Caroline Pierce lived in the same small town. She was 20 years old and worked as a waitress. One morning, the cops received a call from her coworkers saying that they were concerned because Caroline had not shown up for work. The coworkers weren't reporting her as missing. They were essentially just calling for a wellness check, so the police walked over. As they were trying to break into the front door because she wasn't coming to the door, the neighbors walk out and they say that they heard female screams late last night. As the police get inside, Caroline is not there. December 1987, 40 miles away from Caroline's apartment, they find her body in a field with almost the exact same injuries as Wendy's. So they realize that whoever did this to Caroline must have done the same thing to Wendy. They do find DNA evidence as well on Caroline, and they test it to the one they found on Wendy's, and it is a match. Caroline's autopsy also later revealed that she had been used after she was already dead. Today, if there's a crime scene like that, police can just take the DNA evidence, test it with the big DNA database that they have and see if there's a match. But in the 80s, they didn't have that yet. So the only thing that they could do pretty much with this DNA is beg the public. This was all over the news. Their tactic was to put it out to the public so intensely to scare the murderer and hope that they wouldn't do it again. So for 30 years, they had no answers, and those 2 crimes were later referred to as the Bedsit Murders. Fast forward to the beginning of 2020, there is a new generation of policemen and obviously a lot more technology. So those policemen start reading through cold case files and they realize that they have the database now and they have the DNA, so they test it. In this database that the police have, it is essentially a bunch of DNA from a bunch of different people, but people that have previously committed crimes. So someone that did something bad that caused the cops to take their DNA in the first place. So they test it, they have no match. So they're like, what should we do now? Let's try and go up his family tree. Eventually, they narrowed it down to around 100 people that had similar DNA, and they brought them in for questioning. They ended up finding one person that had a very, very similar DNA. They start asking him if he has any relatives, and he says that he has one brother in his 60s that lives in Tunbridge Wells. So the location matches up and the age matches up, because the police were assuming that whoever did that in the 80s was around their 20s, so if the guy was now 60, that would add up. This brother's name is David Fuller. He is 65 years old now. He had never been convicted for any crimes, which is why his DNA was not in the database. However, when he was a teenager, he did break into a few homes but never served any prison time. Breaking into those homes when he was a teenager was the only criminal history that he had, but now as a 65-year-old, he was the most normal man you can think of. He had a wife, he had 3 children. One of them was a teenager and still lived with him. He worked as a general maintenance worker at a hospital. He had been working there since 2008, and he was well respected. Everyone at the hospital loved him and had nothing but good things to say about him. Because he worked as a maintenance worker at this hospital, he had an access key that would allow him to get into every single door, every single floor, every single area of the hospital, basically. Keep that in mind. So police think that it was him that committed these crimes in the 80s. So December 3rd, 2020, they go to his house, they arrest him on suspicion of these murders. They take his DNA and it is an exact match, so he is officially charged. David is acting clueless. He says he doesn't know who Caroline and Wendy are. He doesn't even know the town it happened in. He doesn't know anything. He's denying it all. But he also doesn't know that meanwhile, the questioning is going on. There are policemen back at his house searching his home, ripping it apart. And what they found inside of his home is unbelievable. So they did find evidence connecting him to both Wendy and Caroline. They found old pictures of his shoe that match the shoe print that they found at the crime scene. They found receipts showing that he often went to the film store that Wendy worked at, as well as receipts that showed he was often at the restaurant where Caroline worked at. And they found pictures of him in the 80s, and in the background was the field where Caroline's body was found in. So a lot of things confirming that everything he was denying was a lie. Other things that they found were diaries. David would write down every single thing that he did every single day for his entire life. And they also found a lot of pictures, photo albums, SD cards, hard drives, everything. These SD cards, hard drives, and everything that contained either photos or videos were very well hidden. Like, for example, he would tape it underneath his desk, or he would carve out little pieces in the wall, put them in there, and then hide them. You could tell he was trying to hide them. In those videos, it was revealed that David Fuller almost every single day had this routine where he would sneak into the morgue after hours. He would take his toolbox with him. In case someone walked in, he could make up an excuse that he was working on something in there. But what he was really doing is he was using and dead bodies and would film himself doing these horrible things to these bodies. So this guy that people thought was just a regular 65-year-old maintenance man was really sneaking into the morgue and doing the most horrific, disgusting, unspeakable things. It has been confirmed that he did this over 100 times to bodies aged between 9 and 100, but his key card was used to go into the morgue thousands of times, so we will never really know exactly how many times he committed these heinous crimes. In his diary, he would write down specific details about everything that he would do to the victims, as well as their names, their ages, and specific actions that he did. And sometimes the victims' names would be in there multiple days in a row, and then they would just disappear, which means their bodies were probably released to their families so that they could have proper funerals. And just knowing that David did disgusting things to the victims, and then those bodies were later taken back to their families to be put to rest is just unbelievable. At the trial, he did plead guilty, and he was charged with the 2 murders as well as 51 offenses. At 68 years old, he was sentenced, and at his sentencing, the judge said, "You will live the rest of your mortal life in prison." Oh my God, I was reading the details. I can't include too many pictures on this one because it's just so disturbing. And because it was the 80s, there was not CCTV footage of the morgue, but they didn't really need that because David recorded himself doing all these disgusting things. But yeah, crazy. Look up his name. It's so disturbing, and let me know what you think.
am I the astronaut for refusing, all caps, to tell my family which of my baby girls I adopted? I, a single 20-year-old female, gave birth to a baby girl about 2 months ago, and at the same time adopted a second baby girl who was born about 3 days before. The daughter that I had in my uterus, I will call Rose. The daughter that I didn't carry, I will call Lily. I got pregnant with Rose about the same time that my best friend, who I'll call Anna, got pregnant with Lily. While I was ecstatic about being pregnant, Anna was not. Anna felt that she wasn't in a good place emotionally, financially, or any other way to have a child. She told me she was considering getting an abortion, but that she wished her child could have a good life somewhere else instead of just being thrown away. But anytime she pictured putting her child up for adoption, she remembers all of the stories of abusive adoptive parents. She said that she felt helpless because there didn't seem to be any good answers. That's when we came up with a hesitant plan. We decided that if after Lily's birth, Anna still didn't feel like she could raise her, I would adopt Lily and raise the girls as twins. Anna didn't want Lily to know she was adopted, but I hated the idea of lying to a daughter of mine. We decided that once Lily was old enough to understand, I would explain that she was adopted. If at that point Anna felt ready, we would tell Lily that Anna was her bio mom. And if not, then I would say that her mother wasn't ready for her to know who she was. This way, Lily could live her life. Anna didn't need to be worried about Lily because she could check in on her at any time, and Anna would be able to continue working and getting her life in order. I chose not to have any of my family in the room during the birth because I wasn't comfortable with them seeing me like that, and Anna was fighting with her own family at the time. So Anna and I were the only ones in the room for each other during the births. After Lily was born, Anna still wanted me to adopt Lily, and also said that she did want to be in her life more than she originally thought. We decided that she would be the godmother of both girls, and I would be their mother. When it was time for us to go home, I organized a get-together for my family to meet both of my daughters, and we went forward with the adoption. As soon as my grandmother met the babies, she asked me which one was my daughter, and I replied that they both were. She rolled her eyes and said that I knew what she meant. I told her that no, I don't, because they are both my daughters. She got mad about that and asked me which one was my real daughter, and my parents backed her up, saying that I should tell them which daughter I had adopted. I got mad and asked them why it mattered. Both babies are my children. I'm breastfeeding both of them. I named both of them, and I was there through the entire pregnancy for both of them, even if I only carried one of them myself. This led to a fight, with my family insisting that I tell them which daughter is which, and me insisting that my grandmother apologize for implying that one of them wasn't my real daughter. My parents told me that I'm being dramatic, pointlessly stubborn, ridiculous, and that they just wanted to know when dealing with the girls which one was their granddaughter. I kicked them all out and said that unless they apologize and stop asking which daughter is adopted, they would not get to see either of them. After they left, I sent out a text saying that I will tell them which one is adopted when I explained to her that she is adopted, but adopted or not, they are both my children. I also reiterated that until I get an apology and they agree to view my daughters equally, they will not see the girls and I will not be talking to them. I received a massive amount of text ranging from them demanding that I let them see the kids and telling me how cruel I was and selfish to deprive my daughters of their love, to pleading with me to just tell them which girl is which and let them see my daughters. After a few weeks of this, I said enough. The stress of trying to take care of two babies, adopt Lily, and deal with my family was too much. So I sent out another text telling them that I was serious when I said I won't tell them which daughter is adopted. I then told them that I can't take their constant text anymore, and anyone that texts me something that doesn't start with an apology is getting blocked. Most of my family realized that I wouldn't back down and stopped texting. I did have to block my brother, who sent me 2 paragraphs about why I should just give our parents and grandparents what they want because it isn't worth the fight. I also had to block my mom, who texted me to tell me that no one was going to help me take care of the children until I told them the truth about which is my real daughter. Anna agrees with me that they shouldn't care which one is adopted and says that she wishes that my family didn't even know that one girl was adopted. Well, yesterday, both babies were crying. Lily needed a diaper change and Rose was hungry, and I realized that my mom was right. I can't be in both places at once, and I can't take care of them by myself. Luckily, Anna was there, and she was able to take care of them both and get them settled because I broke down sobbing and was completely useless. Now I'm starting to wonder if I'm a bad mother for not letting my daughters see their family, and if I have chosen the wrong hill to die on. P.S. Anna was able to cheer me up. We cuddled together and with the babies on the sofa eating ice cream and chocolate most of the night. She is also the one who convinced me to write this post because she is obsessed with Reddit. All right, here's the update. Thank you all so much for the support. I was shocked when I saw how many people had commented because I honestly expected to find maybe 3 or 4. I tried to read through the comments quickly and I went to answer a few things that I saw multiple people say. 1, everyone knows that Anna was pregnant and that one of them is her bio kid. Anna and I do look pretty similar on a basic level. Both have similar colors of brown hair, dark brown eyes, and both are white. I am a little darker than Anna. She is fair-skinned, and I always look like I have a tan. We both also got pregnant by a white guy. To me, at least, it isn't obvious which girl is whose bio kid. 2, Anna had been dating Lily's bio dad for maybe a year and a half, but when he heard that Anna was pregnant, he told her that he didn't want anything to do with the child. I got pregnant because I went to a party and was an idiot. I have contacted Rose's father, but he told me to give him time to think, so I've been waiting for him to come around. 3, I have not legally adopted Lily yet. Anna and I have agreed that Lily is my child, and Lily is staying at my house, but Anna is still currently her legal guardian. Right now, we're trying to figure out where Lily's father went. 4, I think I saw several people saying that I don't know how much work 2 babies will be. I definitely did not know what I was signing up for. Me and Anna thought we knew it would be hard, but this is not what I was expecting. Anna has been an absolute angel. She is probably the only reason I am still sane right now. After we realized our false expectations, Anna comes over almost daily, except for the 2 days before I had a mini breakdown, and has fallen asleep at my house a few times while caring for the kids. Another friend of ours who I'll call James has also been stopping by. He doesn't help with the girls because in his own words, I don't know what to do with the baby. But James makes food and cleans up the house a bit. I am eternally grateful to both James and Anna because I would be lost without them. 5, a lot of you point out that telling Lily when she is old is a bad idea, and I agree with you. That was my idea. I didn't really think about how that could affect her finding out when she was older. I'm going to talk to Anna about this because I don't want to cause my daughter any issues down the line.
The trend of things your parents did that you thought were normal is all over my For You page. So here are some of mine. My parents got divorced because I wouldn't close a cabinet. I was cooking and my dad was like, close the cabinet. I'm like, I'm using the spices. He got so fucking mad and annoyed. He wanted to pull me out of all of my after school activities and everything. And my mom was like, no. And then he was like, then I want a divorce. And they got a divorce. My dad also made me drive him to the train when it was pouring rain outside and I didn't have my license. I didn't really know how to drive whatsoever. And he made me drive him. He was like screaming at me at 7 in the morning and like both my sisters had their license, but he wanted me to drive him. Literally bawling my fucking eyes out on the way home. I was like, I don't know how to drive. My parents also made us go to a funeral like every other week. Somebody always was dead. Somebody we didn't know, and they'd be like, well, you have to go pay your respect. I don't even know who the fuck this is. And they were like, well, you have to go pay your respect. But it just like became a trend that we would always have to go to like a funeral or a wake, and we would go to the same place. And then my sisters and I would run to the back and see if they got like, they catered Jimmy John's or like what food that they catered. The Italians always had the best food. So I was like excited to go to the Italian funeral. So I also one time got so mad at my best friend for leaving the sleepover in 2nd grade. And she wanted to leave because she witnessed my dad come home and shove a bar of soap in my sister's mouth for swearing. And she was like, oh, I don't want to stay here. Like, that's terrifying. I was like, oh man, why? It's just like a Saturday night. Like, what do you mean? I didn't realize it was abuse. I was like genuinely upset with her. I was like, are you really gonna go home? And she was like, yeah, Olivia, I'm gonna go home. I'm terrified. And I was like, what? He just shoved a bar of soap in her mouth. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And my best friend went home, and I was so fucking mad at her. This is something more of what my sister did, but when our house was, like, about to foreclose on, my sister, people would, like, come to the door, and they'd be like, hey, like, you didn't pay taxes, or, like, you don't have a fucking mortgage, or, like, whatever. And my sister would always run into my room and scream at me for going to the psych ward. She was like, you're the reason we're going poor is because you had to go to the psych ward. I was like, I tried to off myself. Like, I had no choice. Like, I don't know what the fuck you want me to do. But my sister convinced me that I was the reason that we were going to lose the house. My father's inability to handle money. It was me and my psych ward visit. Like, no. I had insurance. My dad would also yell at me anytime I had a panic attack. He would yell at me and he would be like, don't fucking have a panic attack. And then I would continue to have panic attacks. Anytime my dad came home, my sisters and I would sprint up the stairs. Like, we would all be in the kitchen, like laughing, hanging out with my mom. My dad would come home and we would sprint up the fucking stairs. We wouldn't leave our rooms for the rest of the day. And my mom would be like, girls, please don't leave me. And like, we would sprint. And we would like drag each other down the stairs, like to make it up there first kind of thing. Cause we just like didn't want to see him. This one was really weird. My mom continuously called my dog our brother, and like he was really vicious. The dog was like so vicious. His name was George. Loved him, but she would always be like, your brother wants a hug, like your brother needs to get fed, like your brother needs us. Always would do that. And she would always give him like a lot of her coffee, and like they would share her coffee, and he would always drink wine and beer. Like the dog lived a really good life. Make the fucking dog like fillets on the grill when I'm eating pasta. Like, the dog lived an amazing life. Okay, this is what I did. Like, I was like a little bit sane, but I thought it was normal. I didn't want to go back to school one time, so I locked my grandma in the basement because she was like taking me back to school, and I was like, I don't want to fucking go back to school. So I decided to lock her in the basement with my cousin. We just locked her down there. Those are just some things that like my parents, my sisters, and I did growing up that I thought were normal, but like clearly it's not normal.
My husband's side chick doesn't want to leave him alone now that he wants to focus on me, his family. Story time. I have been married for almost a year now, and our first wedding anniversary is this month, June. My husband drastically changed immediately after we got married, and I never complained. I gave birth to our first child last December through CS, and this man was not even helpful at all. He doesn't ask how I'm feeling. He doesn't try to make things easier for me. I still do the full house chores with pain. The only thing this man ever says to me is that I'm hungry and I have to go into the kitchen to cook for him with the pain. After a while of all this happening, I decided to go through his phone to find out what is really happening. So I cloned his WhatsApp, and that was when I realized that my husband was actually chatting with different girls. You cannot tell me that this is the first cheating scandal you're having with your husband. But women tell me that their husbands just drastically change without any reason. I'd be like, you saw a lot of traits, you saw a lot of signs while dating, you just chose to ignore. Lo and behold, I found that my husband was sleeping with numerous girls, but I did not confront him. I did not even complain because I didn't want to let him know that I had his WhatsApp on my phone, so I just kept quiet. I wanted to see more of it. Fast forward till March this year, we had a heated argument and I confronted him about everything he has been doing, all the cheating, all the evidence that I have, and this man told me I had no right whatsoever to confront him. And you are telling me that, oh, your husband drastically changed after marriage? No, he has always been like that. You chose to ignore because you wanted the Mrs. title. But let us proceed. The argument escalated, we insulted ourselves, and I decided to report him to my sister. Then my sister told me that since my husband is not ready to be accountable, he's not ready to take responsibility for his actions and apologize, he's not even remorseful, I should keep quiet, I should be looking at him, and I should be praying for him to be better. Then this man started staying late for no reason, and if I ask him why he's staying late, he will turn it to a big quarrel. To be honest, at first I was tempted to text this girl and give her the warning of her life. I wanted to tell her to leave my husband alone and stay the hell away from a married man. But I did not. I held myself back. You for no hold yourself back. That is when you realize that some girls do things without shame. They will insult you. Don't ever fight another woman for a man, though. It is you who thinks, oh, she's supposed to respect my home. She doesn't see it like that. Majority of these girls know what they are doing, and they will do it unapologetically. So for your own self-dignity, don't text her. Later on, I realized that my husband stopped chatting with the girl, but this girl now is the one pestering my husband. She keeps asking him when and where they are going to see. She's on his neck, and I cannot even take it anymore. I feel like at this point, I should text her and tell her to stay away from my husband. Madam, your husband is probably not responding to that girl right now because he doesn't have money. The moment that man cashes out, he's the one that will go and pester that girl. But let us hope he has really actually changed, because if he has, he would not be coming home late. And he did not tell me any good character trait that man has started emulating for a while now. You are still going through his WhatsApp. That's how you found out that he's not talking to that girl anymore. It's not as if the man has started coming home early. It is high time you women actually let men take responsibility and accountability for breaking your homes. I understand that these women are also doing too much by not leaving people's husbands alone, but the person that promised you for better for worse is your husband. If this particular one leaves your husband, the next one might not. So your husband should be the one you face. Please advise her in the comment section, and to share your stories with me, send an email to talktoperona@gmail.com so I can easily see your stories and read them immediately.
Am I in the wrong for promising my son something that I have to break? So my son isn't like the typical boy. Well, he plays football, is athletic, flirts with girls, goes to parties, etc. But he's always been someone that really likes to take care of other people. It started when he was a child. We brought his sister home and he would sleep in her crib with her and take care of her as you would a parent. He wanted to be the one to feed her, play with her, put her to sleep. It was really adorable, but we put a stop to it because it got to the point where she only wanted to be around her brother and didn't care about her parents. She still prefers him, which is embarrassing, but at least she's not calling him dad anymore. He also always is saving animals and bringing them home. We're not big pet people, so we've never had pets before, but he has snuck a kitten in and nursed her in his room before we found out. His best friend has sort of a bad home situation, so he often does his homework for him, even though we tell him not to, and he brings him food that he cooks himself. It does stress me out that he seems to want to mother someone so bad. He always talks about how much he'd love a dog and how he's missing out on important childhood memories by not having one. He's begged us for a dog, but we've said no. While he says he'll care for it completely, we know that's not feasible because he's in school for 9 hours a day, and then he also has sports and extracurriculars. He also has friends that he hangs around, so we hardly see him. Having a dog is a big no. We explained this to him, but he's not happy about it. There's a giant lab that is a stray where we live, and a lot of our neighbors have been feeding and taking care of it. Yesterday, I came home and my son brought it inside, giving it a bath, and is training it with treats. I said no dogs inside, play with him outside, and kick both of them out. Later, my son came in to eat food. The lab was sitting right at the door, waiting for him to come back outside. His sister and him begged me to let them keep the lab, but I said absolutely not. Labs make a lot of mess, and that one has a lot of energy. When my son goes to sleep, he's sad because the lab is still waiting at the door. He says the dog shouldn't be kept outside his whole life. He asks me if the lab is out there by the morning. If he waits outside all night, can I keep it? I decide sure. All night, him and his sister kept checking the door to see if the lab was still there, and it was. But I wasn't worried because I thought that for sure it would be gone by the morning. But it wasn't. He woke up in the morning and opened the door, and the lab was still there. Of course, they were celebrating keeping their lab, but I had to tell him absolutely not. I only said that because I thought that he wouldn't be outside in the morning. My son said I'm breaking my promise and is upset at me. My daughter has been crying. So, am I in the wrong?